Australia's recession is coming. Let's have a look. Good morning everyone, Florian Heise here and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I hope you're having a good Saturday, ready for a good productive day. I'm here with my morning stein of coffee and I thought we'd read this article from news.com about Australia's recession and how it's hitting, or how it's likely. So 20 to 25% chance of a recession. What do you think? Before we even delve into this, do you think there's a 20 or 25% chance of a recession? I would say it's close to 80 to 90% chance, or it's kind of beyond their capabilities to forestall it for much longer. You know, they can print money, they can do all the monetary tricks they want, but eventually it's going to turn, and it has to. Let's have a look. This is by Frank Chung from news.com.au. He does some good stuff. So Australia is now facing a 20 to 25% of a recession in the next 12 months as the US-China trade war heats up. The next 12 months we're facing a recession. Well, we're already in a per capita recession. We're already in a per capita recession. I mean, the last time we looked, GDP growth was trending down. Consumer confidence is slightly up, consumer sentiment. This is from the Westpac the Melbourne Institute, their data. Now, my question with that is that, oh, that's a mistake, sorry about that, is a portion of this, because it's a combination of a series of sub-indices, and one of them is to do with, now's the time to purchase household items. And that really shot up, that spiked up, and that lifted the whole index. But we just had the tax return in July. So I would argue, combining that with the data, you know, the articles about JB Hi-Fi, you know, going all guns, that may be a little unrealistic. It may have the issue with the tax return has pushed that indice up. So we'll see. We'll see. So, nearly 3 decades ago, radio station Triple M used to hand out bumper stickers that read, "Triple M rocks to recession." Well, that's the thing. You know, I remember the last recession, and I was a child in the last recession, the recession Australia had to have. Now, it's because my father was in the construction game. I remember business getting really quiet for him. All of a sudden, he was at home. He was cooking food. It was terrible. It took him a few years to learn. I still, to this day, remember him screaming at me to eat this horrific sausage and potato goulash that he made that would just slopped on bread. So yes, yeah, I'm still in shock. I'm still in shock. Thumbs up if you had to eat sausage and potato goulash and you know what I'm talking about. So that's the last recession. So we have a generation that doesn't know what a recession is. We have a generation that thinks property only always goes up. It just shoots up. All these people on Facebook and YouTube that are pushing their property expertise, you know, buying one property and then using the equity in that to buy another and to buy another and to buy another. Or the gentleman, the mortgage broker, the award-winning mortgage broker that we saw at the Success event, that his strategy was to get people to buy a $700,000 investment property and charge you a higher interest at that, then give you a lower interest on your home, so you can use your ability to negative gear the hell out of that property to pay off your home faster. That's his award-winning strategy. Can you see the risks of that going pear-shaped if we're heading to a recession, if unemployment increases, if interest rates go up? I wonder. So, AMP Capital Chief Economist Dr. Shane Oliver still has one next to his desk. Well, there you go. Wow. I was too young for those. I put it aside thinking one day when the next recession comes along, I'll put it on the bumper of my car, he said. He seems amused that he may finally have a chance to slap that baby on his ride and confuse everybody, not least the under 30s, who have experienced neither recession nor rock music in their lifetimes. Well, yeah, that's a good point. The risk of recession in the US has gone up. Well, we've all seen everyone talking about the inverted yield curve. That's predicted nearly every past recession. But I'd say it's probably around 30% in the next 12 months, Dr. Oliver said. The risk of recession in Australia is lower, probably 20 to 25%. Nearly 4 in 10 Australians were not even born in 90... Whoa! Okay, 40% of Australians weren't even born in 91. I remember, and segueing, when I was teaching at QUT, we had this one subject where we had to get the students to model up a spaceship, a Star Wars spaceship, in 3ds Max, which is a animation modeling software. And I was showing them pictures of TIE fighters and all Star Wars ships from the original movies, and they didn't know what that was. They kept referring to the new movies. And that's when I realized that I was old. So, back to the article. Nearly 4 in 10 Australians were not even born in 91. While sky-high housing prices and cost of living pressures mean it's not exactly the land of milk and honey for millennials, after 3 decades without a recession, defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth, they don't quite know how good they've got it. Well, yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. You've got people that don't know what a recession is, that don't know that you can't just walk out of one job and find another one straight away. And that's going to start happening. It's already starting to happen in certain industries. In retail's in a recession, regardless of what JB Hi-Fi says. So, Dr. Oliver says, it was a pretty dark time. A lot of financial institutions were running into trouble. A lot of smaller ones went bust, particularly in Victoria. Yes, wasn't it Pyramid? Didn't they go under? I remember. Pyramid. Why the hell would you call your financial business Pyramid? I mean, seriously, isn't that just... I guess people still were falling for pyramid scams and stuff like that back then, weren't they? Or it was just coming to an end. Not that we're not now. Not that... I think there's a huge crypto Ponzi scheme apparently in China, Plus Token, just flooding the market with Bitcoin, which is interesting. That's a concern there, and that's affecting the price. So we're still just as foolish as they were in the past. There was a run on the Bank of Melbourne. 2 of the big 4 had to be bailed out. Unemployment shot from around 6% to above 10%. I mean, there you go, guys. Look at that. Can you see that happening now? House prices collapsed, and vacancy rates in some cities shot up 20%. At the same time, the manufacturing industry was massively downsized in Victoria and South Australia. Now, here's the thing. With our banking system at the moment, we don't have fractional reserve banking here in Australia. We have, and I will do a video on this in greater detail, we have a system where the assets of the bank are used. And a lot of the assets of the bank, there's tier 1 and tier 2 ones, but a lot of the assets of the bank are the mortgages and the houses. What happens if those prices collapse? What happens? It'll be interesting to see. So they were often referred to as Rust Belt states, Dr. Oliver said. That led to a situation where a lot of Australian men were taking redundancy payments at 55 and would never get a job again. Once the redundancy ran out, they would go on Social Security and ultimately the pension. There you go. I mean, that's the sad reality, isn't it? Percentage change in GDP falling down. The Australian recession becomes official. Good old Keating. This is why I'm unemployment rocketing up. I would put money that it's coming. I'd bet a card. I'd even bet some good German Weiss beer. Yep, definitely, as people were mentioning in the comments. Recession risk growing. Global stock markets were sent into chaos this week after a key recession warning light flashed red. That is the so-called yield curve between 10-year and 2-year US government bonds briefly inverted. In normal circumstances, an investor looking for a safe place to stash their cash should be able to get a better return or yield on a 10-year bond than a 2-year one. You're locking up your money for longer, so naturally you want a better return. Yes, but the market sometimes doesn't seem to make sense, does it? If investors believe a financial crisis is just around the corner, however, everyone wants to buy ultra-safe 10-year bonds. Supply and demand drives up the price, just like a company's shares, which means you're getting a lower return per dollar on the same bond. So that's the thing. We're seeing all around the world, negative yielding bonds. So, I mean, we'll bring this up here. You can look at just all these different countries: Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Japan, Austria, France, Belgium, Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Italy. I mean, that's a pretty significant number of countries, isn't it? So, what does that tell you about global confidence of where everything's sitting? Yeah. I know this is a cheery video to start a Saturday with. I mean, I'm going to have a good day. I'll go do some yard work. I've got some rubble to move. Got a new project or 2 new projects to get started on, so it'll be good. You know, we had our what was it, science fair yesterday. Oh, and actually, while I remember, a big shout out to Damien for his super chat in my premiere yesterday. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate it. Sorry I wasn't there. I was science fairing as Mina Science Fair, and I had to premiere the video because that's the only way I can kind of embed it in my blog before it actually goes live. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, and it's sad that I wasn't there to thank you in person online, but I'm doing it now. So thanks, mate, very much. But it's all in the name of science. It's very important learning about cabbage juice as a pH indicator. So there you go. Back to the article, which, well, then again, we may need to be using cabbage juice as a cheap pH indicator for your pools. Guys, there's a good method to save money there. Don't buy those little thingamajigs. Just boil some cabbage. You can eat the cabbage. You can use the water to measure your pool's pH level. Yeah, it's all about saving money. I have to do my five insane recession tips in another video. So back to this. The S&P this week calculated the odds of a US recession in the next 12 months at 30 to 35%, up from 25 to 30% last quarter. Unpredictability on the trade front and deteriorating global backdrop led by industrial weaknesses are the key reasons for high alert, the ratings agency said on Friday. What would turn it around? What would turn around the global economy? They're all saying there's only a 20% chance, 30% chance. What would turn it around? Global conflict? Would a war be the only thing that would start driving up supply and demand? Could that be it? What else could? What else could turn around? Major consumer confidence? I'm not sure. Let me know your ideas in the comments if it's actually possible to turn it around. I think it's just, with our monetary policy, we're just delaying the inevitable. It has to reach an equilibrium. We can't have such a... The problem is, right now, you've got a situation where you've got boomers wanting to sell, retire, and cash out of their property. They're wanting to retire. And, I mean, who's going to be able to afford to buy it? With the cost of living, the market has to reach an equilibrium. It has to, or you can't hold on to these properties forever, can you? According to Dr. Oliver, however, the yield curve as a recession predictor has several issues. Sometimes it's a false lead. It may invert and you don't get a recession, like in 1998, he said. Secondly, the gap between the inversion and a recession actually occurring can be quite long. The average lead is 19 months. So if it inverts now, it wouldn't give us a recession until the start of 2021, a fair way off. Well, that just shows you the sentiment of the market, I would say. Preparing. So are people planning that far out? These large investment firms? I would hope so. You'd imagine they would. Other factors may mean it is a less reliable predictor than in the past, he said, including the US government's quantitative easing program pushing down yields and very low bond yields in Japan and Europe, further increasing demand for US bonds. He concedes US-China trade tensions have increased the risk, but just because America has a recession doesn't mean we will. Really? It doesn't mean we will? I mean, let's have a look. Let's have a look at Australia's economy. I mean, look at our export markets. Look at what we're exporting. You know, who's our major export source? Our major export source, or destination, sorry, is to China. Look at what we're all importing. Look at where our exports are going. And do you think China would be affected by a recession in the United States? I mean, I think it would. Doesn't that seem reasonably obvious? And then it would flow through to us, because China and America are quite large trading partners. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think. The last 20 years, we've managed to avoid US recessions. Yes, we have. We have. How have we? How have we? Maybe we should have had a recession in the last 20 years. That has been due to a combination of factors, but particularly the floating Australian dollar and more recently, China's demand for our natural resources. Well, yeah, that's it. I'd say that is, well, they're the two factors. The dollar, allowed to float, means it can be more attractive to foreign investors. And China's demand for our natural resources, I think that's the big one. That's the one that worries me, because that's going to get affected most by the recession. But then again, China is its own little thing. They can just churn out another million empty cities. Typically, when the rest of the world gets in trouble, the Australian dollar goes down. That makes us more competitive, he said. We saw that in the 2000s. It almost got to parity prior to the GFC, then it collapsed. Well, another thing to think about is with that, our cost of living increases because of the amount of stuff that's imported into Australia. And we'll just have a look here. I mean, you can see broadcasting equipment, cars, refined petroleum. How much of that is going into our cost of living and how much of that is going to be affected by a declining Australian dollar. So it's not all roses, guys. It's not all roses. Dr. Oliver argued that while Chinese government stimulus was nowhere near 2008-2009 levels, it would still be enough to supply demand for Australian coal and iron ore. In a speech to the annual Risk Australia conference in Sydney on Thursday, RBA Deputy Governor Guy Debella had a similar assessment, predicting Australia would be insulated by China. We're exporting resources, not microchips, he said. Well, yes, and what is driving the demand for microchips? I mean, it's... Anyway, while the Australian economy is often regarded as a proxy for China, the primary exposure of the Australian economy is to the Chinese domestic economy, not the Chinese external sector. The external sector has been the part of the Chinese economy most affected by the trade dispute. As that external sector has come under pressure, Chinese government has responded with stimulus to the domestic economy, directed to the parts of the Chinese economy that are steel intensive, most notably infrastructure. Okay, can they keep doing that forever? This has boosted the demand for coal and iron ore, Dr. Debella said. Well, let's have a look at, iron ore prices, which is a big part of the Australian exports to China and a big part of our export sector. I'll just bring that up here. And someone asked how many screens I actually have in front of me. I've actually got 6 screens working. I've got 3 above here. I've got 1 here under the camera, and I've got 3 below here. And you may think, that's excessive, Florian. Why would you need 6 screens? And originally I did it when I was doing the whole crypto thing, guys. We can see here, iron ore. When I was doing the whole crypto, just trading, and I wanted all these screens up. And then I kind of got used to it for drafting and for working on stuff. It's really handy. I'd recommend it. But I wouldn't go out and rush and buy these screens. I had them all left over from when I scaled back my business. So you might as well use them. I'm not going to sell them. So, there you go. There's iron ore. Yep, that's looking healthy. It's only 1 day. Let's pull out to a month. So, it's had a bit of a drop in price. So that's another thing to consider. The domestic stimulus in China to offset the trade dispute has contributed to a short-term boost to the Australian economy and significantly mitigated the impact of the trading disputes on us. However long this lasts will depend on the effectiveness and longevity of Chinese domestic stimulus. Well, if it has boosted Australia's economy, we haven't seen it in our unemployment data, and I'll bring that up. It was just released recently, and labour, what we've got here, employment rate. Oh, well, look, there's the employment rate, but no, I want the unemployment rate. Down here, it's remained the same. So if it's given a boost to the economy, we haven't seen it in the employment figures. And I also question this approach to their employment, to the methodology used to calculate this. I prefer the Roy Morgan one. Because, 1 hour a week is not enough. It's not enough. So guys, what do you think? Do you think recession's inevitable? Do you think it's only a 20 or 30% chance? Are we going to head back to the challenges that Australia faced with the recession Australia had to have? What sectors are going to save us? Wage growth. The only thing driving up wage growth here in Australia was the public sector. That pretty much was pushing it up. Everything else was pretty sedated. So we'll see. Keep an eye on it. Everyone get prepared. That's what I'm doing. The biggest trick is frankly, to address your debts that you can get rid of as fast as you can. You don't want to be in a situation where you're unemployed, where you've got a huge credit card, where you've got another huge credit card, where you've got the mortgage. Just the stress alone will kill you for that. Cut your cost of living. Cut out all the crap you don't need, and you would be shocked at how much stuff you don't really need. A lot of people would. It's really quite concerning how much garbage people buy. As an architect, it's a really funny thing. People want these huge houses, and the square meter cost of building these things can get up to from $1,000 to $3,000 to build these houses. And you think about it, they're getting all this storage space to store garbage from IKEA, all this crap furniture, all this stuff, clothes or stuff they never look at. It just seems insane when you think about it. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. What are you doing to prepare for this recession? Do you think we're going to have another recession Australia had to have? Or is domestic China going to save Australia? What do you reckon? Anyway, guys, thank you for joining me for this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Share the content around. It helps grow the channel. We're at 7,500 right now, so I'm really quite happy with the growth. It's going fantastic. Thanks all for watching. Have a good weekend. See ya.